Hello everyone, welcome to your channel Data Science Studio, and today we are going to talk about the different roles which are available in the organization. And there are, in current scenario, there are many roles available in the organization, and some of the key roles in the data science field are data analyst, data scientist, and ML engineer is one of the role which is evolving. We'll be talking about all these roles in detail, but before that it is very important to understand one role which is called as data engineer, because in the current scenario, whether you are data analyst or data scientist or ML engineer, you will be coordinating with data engineer in an organization. So first we have to understand what is the role of data engineer. So the role of data engineer is actually to build architecture which facilitates the processing of the raw data into process data in a usable format. So one thing is very important, they develop architecture to process your raw data into process data, and which is stored in database. And this particular data is being used by either data analyst or data scientist or ML engineer. So data engineer is a very critical role right now in terms of data science space. And there's one more role which goes hand in hand with respect to data engineer. It is called as data architect. So what is the role of data architect is actually they are basically again same IT professionals, and their main job is to review and analyze the organization infrastructure and design solutions to improve the performance of their existing architecture. So that role of data architect is to develop the framework, and the role of data engineer is to apply that framework onto the ground. Now when we are talking about data engineer and data architect, we are not going into technical details, but majority of the skills which are required for data engineer and data architect are Python. You should be aware very good with Python, and some big data languages like Scala. You should be aware of SQL. You should be aware of NoSQL as well. So these are the language which you can use. There are some tools also available in the market. There is a tool called as Talent that is actually used for data transformation. Now data transformation happens in variety of ways. There are two predominant stages. One is called as ETL, and in today's scenario we have something called as ELT as well. So ETL stands for extract, transform and load, and ELT stands for extract, load and transform. Now this is from the data engineer perspective. So if you are working with any organization, you will be coordinating with a data engineer, and you should know that what is the role of data engineer in that organization. Now we'll be moving to one by one, and we'll be discussing the different roles available for the data analyst and the data scientist. Let me just rub it off. So now we will start with the role of the analyst. In case of analyst, the main job of analyst is to again perform an exploratory data analysis. So the main job, the main job of the data analyst is to identify the key insights from the data, and so that the business stakeholders can take actionable action on that. Now the role of data analyst is evolving, and it depends from organization to organization what kind of tools they are using, but basically they should know about Python, which is a data processing language used by the data analyst. They should be aware about SQL, or it could be NoSQL. and they should be aware about PySpark if they are working with big data. When we are working, so again, Python, PySpark is data processing language. SQL is actually the data querying language. And once you have processed the data and once we have done some findings, you should be aware of one visualization tool as well, which is, it could be Power BI, it could be Tableau. So a data analyst should be aware of these many things, and they should be very good with presentation skills, and that holds true for data scientist as well. So there is a commonality between data analyst and data scientist in terms of the language they are using, in terms of the visualizations they are using. But data analyst is not using any kind of a statistical algorithm. They are basically doing the trend analysis. But when we are, and again, data analyst should be aware of basic maths, and they should be aware of basic statistics to make sure that they are able to bring out the meaningful insights from the data. So that is from the data analyst perspective. So again, to summarize, data analyst, you should be aware of Python as a data processing language. You should be aware of the SQL as the data querying language. You should be aware of PySpark if you are working with big data, and if you should be aware of basic maths and statistics. So that is from the perspective of data analyst. Now when we talk about data scientist, so most of the candidates are aspiring for becoming a data scientist. Now data scientist, to become a data scientist, we will talk about it. Let me just rub it off. So when we talk about data scientist, the main tool which they should be aware about is statistics and maths, because the commonality between data analyst and data scientist is your Python, is your SQL, is your PySpark. But what differentiates a data scientist and a data analyst is the in-depth understanding about the maths and statistics. And there is a evolving field right now which is deep learning. Again, deep learning, if you have to understand deep learning, you should be thorough with some of the basic concepts of maths in the linear algebra, calculus. You should be aware about the probability, all those concepts in statistics as well. So again, in data analyst, math and statistics are at very beginner level, but maths and statistics are at pretty advanced level if you want to become a good data scientist, because you should be very thorough in terms of all the algorithms which you have to understand the math behind it, because you cannot just import a library in Python, scikit-learn, and do some model. You should be able to understand math behind it, and in future sessions we will be seeing all those algorithms and all what is the math behind it. So that is from the importance of data scientists. Now data scientists, what kind of projects, for example, if you have to do a project about customer attrition, or you have to do a project about sentiment classification. Now when we are talking about customer attrition, it is basically it could be a binary classifier, it could be a logistic regression kind of project, or if it is a very big data, you can deploy some deep learning algorithms. But when we talk about sentiment analysis, it is basically a project from the field of NLP. So NLP is another field which data scientists should be aware of, because NLP is a complete field in altogether which is basis on the natural language processing subject. So now you should be very clear that if you are aspiring for data analyst, you should be pretty much basic in terms of math and statistics, but should be good in programming, because programming is common, doesn't matter if it is data analyst or data scientist or ML engineer. But if you think that you can study maths, you can study statistics, you can study all the concepts very clearly, then you can go for data scientist. Now there is a concept of, there's a new designation which has evolved in past few years, which is ML engineer. So when we are talking about ML engineers, so what is the role of ML engineers? So the role of ML engineer varies from organization to organization. For example, if it is a startup, the data scientist might be doing the role of ML engineer as well. But if it is a very big organization where they have a predefined teams, so there are ML engineering teams in the organizations as well. So what is the job of ML engineer? So the job of ML engineer is actually to automate the whole process of model development and deployment. So what is the role of data scientist? So data scientist will actually build the model, right? But what ML engineers will do? ML engineers actually design, build and deploy the ML models to production, so that they can be used real time. So that they can be used real time. Let me just so ML engineers actually develop the pipeline. We call it as a pipeline. So ML engineers develop the pipeline to automate the process of model development and deployment. So when we are talking about ML engineers, so model is already being developed. You are actually automating the whole process through a series of steps. So when we are doing a course on Azure, I'll be showing you how you can deploy a model into the Kubernetes cluster. So those all things will come, but ML engineer role is closely associated with data scientist, and they should be working very closely because they have to understand the model, they have to automate the whole model code, and they have to deploy that model into production. So ML engineer should be very good in terms of understanding the maths, because the model is already been finalized by data scientists. They are not going to redevelop it, they are just going to automate the whole process and make a pipeline to move the model to production, so that your model can be used as a web service via a REST API. So in this manner, this is the role of ML engineer. So ML engineers predominantly act as a bridge between data scientists who focus on statistical and model building work and the construction of machine learning systems. Now when we talk about which direction to move, so now you have to decide based on your capabilities as well, and based on how much time you can spend. So because majority of the time will go, if you are a complete beginner, the majority of the time will actually go in learning the programming language also, because you have to learn Python, you have to learn SQL, you should be very good in those languages. And in addition to that, now you should have, if let's say we are talking about time frame, how much time it will take for you to evolve from data analyst to data scientist. ML engineer, if you are a data scientist, then there is a very thin line between ML engineer and data scientist. You can easily switch to roles, but moving from data analyst to data scientist, so if you want to switch from data analyst to data scientist, you can say that it will take 6 months for you, because it will take 6 months to understand the maths and statistics behind all the algorithms. Now if you are completely fresher and you have not worked as data analyst as well, then you can say that to become a data analyst it will take 6 months, and then to become a data scientist it will take another 6 months. So if you want to become a entry level data scientist, you will need at least 12 months. So don't fall into the assumption that there is a 3 months course and we'll be aware of each and everything. It doesn't go that way, because you need to process all the information as well. So that is from the perspective. If you have a CS background, or if you have a MCA background, or if you have a engineering background, then it becomes slightly easy. But if you are from a different background and you want to switch your career, then you need to understand these certain components of your computer science. It could be software engineering, it could be your data structures and algorithm. So that's why it takes time for complete beginner who don't have background in terms of the computer science. So just to summarize, if you want to, if you are a complete beginner, but if you have a experience in computer science, if you have background in computer science or MCA or engineering, it will take minimum 12 months to switch to a data scientist career. And if you are at a data analyst stage, it will still take 6 months to switch to a data scientist. So you should plan your time wisely. We'll be loading all the lectures for all this, but to have the in-depth understanding, you should dedicate some good amount of time. So we'll be having our next session shortly. Thank you.